All right. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Grid Engine Podcast, episode 1 rather than episode 0. This is the first one where we're actually talking about something that's not just how we met or pertaining to ourselves. So we're also going to follow a format in this one as laid out on this paper here that only I can read because my handwriting is so bad. It's like code words. It's pretty sick. So here we go. Ready? Greetings and salutations.
Greetings and salutations.
Here we are.
My
We're
name
doing
is
our
Noah,
thing.
and welcome to the Grid Engine
we're doing
Podcast.
our thing, and it's just like, wow, that's crazy. So basically, what we talking about, bro?
We are going to be talking about what we want to do with the channel moving forward and our next car.
That's exciting.
Because the
For
Civic
people who
is
watch
kinda-
the videos might actually care.
Exactly. And also, the Civic is kind of getting to the end of its usefulness.
Yeah, I would agree. But we're going to start off with some comment response. Okay.
So we're just going to pick out a couple random comments every episode and just read them on the podcast and then respond to them in person.
Yeah, even if we responded to them on YouTube, we will elaborate a bit more here. So, okay, so on our video, how to fix a Civic dying and sputtering under load, the idle air control valve video, we have somebody who commented, "More power baby, chainsaw 2010 is the username." I take great issue with this simply because if you're quoting Donut Media, which I am a mega fan of, you actually spelled it wrong.
How did you spell it?
He spelled it correctly, more power baby. But the way that Donut actually spells it is MO space POWA
More
space.
power, baby.
Right. But then it's BABEH. Baby.
Oh,
More power, baby.
More power, baby.
So, honestly, I'm quite offended, but the way we responded on YouTube was very kind. We just said always. So, there we are.
So just know that if we're nice to you on YouTube, we may actually be punching our monitors.
That's not necessarily true. But I like the comment nonetheless. I get what you're going for. I love that. Now you pick one.
Okay, I'm going to pick this one because it has reference to something that I did while editing.
Okay.
It is a comment from AB. It's just capital A, capital B.
I don't know how they got that username. That's lucky.
And the comment just says, "That Ricardo dance, Lamau," and then laughing, crying emoji.
Yep.
And then we responded, "Bro, we got you," with 2 laughing, crying emojis. So
Very good.
we kind of outdid you there.
Yep.
But I really appreciated that comment because I'm the one who edited this video. And when you turned around and just like threw it back for no reason, I thought that was really funny. So I don't know why, but I decided to crop it out. And every time one of us said tail, I clipped you in. I assume that's what he's talking about because it's the closest thing that could be in it. And you, homie, just like you were throwing it back so every time we said tail, I put a clip of you just absolutely throwing it back. And to have someone notice that and point it out that they thought that was funny, it really meant a lot to me as the one who edited that video.
It's very good. You got several comments about the editing on that video.
That actually made me feel really good after I posted that video. There's multiple comments who were like, "Oh, dude, the editing on this is great." And I was just like, I feel special.
Yeah. And then the last comment I want to talk about is Alex Morrow on our idle air control valve video. He said something along the lines of, "I just bought an 01 Honda Civic EX, got codes P0740 and P0401. You got any idea what this is? I checked my solenoid's P0740 code. It pops up sometimes." The way we responded was, P0740 looks like you need to replace the torque converter clutch solenoid, which shouldn't be hard. It's just mounted on the transmission, basically bell housing. And it sucks because that's an automatic only thing. We haven't dealt with that because we have a manual, but
Yeah.
whatever. It's okay. That one shouldn't be too bad unless you have like a short in the wire somewhere, then that really sucks. And then the other one is the other code, P0401, could be a clogged EGR valve. And you told us that you cleaned out the EGR. I would suggest buying a new one because cleaning out EGR valves usually doesn't work as well as you would like it to. But if your issue persists, I would suggest watching our very first video on the Civic about how we unclogged the EGR pathway to the intake, essentially.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And that was a big problem, and our car ran like shit. And until we unclogged that, it just would continue to run like garbage, even though it wasn't the valve. The valve was new. So yeah, there you go. A couple of goofs and a good one. Now, moving on, we're going to go ahead and move on to the substance. The meat and potate,
if you will.
So, Noah, can you talk a little bit about the why you think the Civic is coming to the end of its usefulness to us?
Okay, I think the Civic is coming to the end of its usefulness for us because the goal with the Civic was to put as many mods and repairs as we could using eBay only. We didn't want to get a lot. It was a budget car. That was the point of it. Because you see all the time on YouTube, you see all these people doing like super high, like super nice cars or super expensive mods, and it's like, that's awesome and that's super cool to see, but that's not what the average person can afford. Like to 23 to 24-year-olds who just have a Honda Civic in their garage. What can they afford?
Right.
eBay parts.
Right.
So, and with that, we've put a lot of eBay parts on it. The intake, we put new wheels on it, we put a new exhaust on it, we put new headlights, taillights, just a bunch of stuff. And it's getting to the point where anything else we want to do, we are going to have to start spending a lot of money.
Right.
Anything we're going to have to do is starting to get into like the real like high performance modifications or like, and that's just going to get really expensive really fast.
Right.
And that was not the goal with the Civic.
Right.
Maybe eventually, if we want to come back to the Civic and do some of those mods, but that's when we first started working on the Civic. That's not what our intention was.
I would like to K24 swap it eventually. One of the really high performance 4-cylinders they put in the Accords from the same year. Those, from what I understand, are fairly plug and play, and you go from like 120 horsepower to 220.
That's a big fucking jump.
It should fit.
Yeah.
That would be cool, but also getting that engine, it's easier because it was in so many different Accords, but it's not as cheap because it's an engine.
Engines aren't the cheapest things to go by. But yeah, so just with the whole like model of the eBay modifications and eBay parts and upgrades and stuff like that, we're just kind of coming to the end of our rope with that. So, and also we've been working on the Civic just for a very long time. So just us as content creators and car enthusiasts, we would like to move on to the next project.
Right. So moving right along, what was the first car that we kind of decided on?
So the first thing we wanted to do initially, before we changed it, was a second or third. I think it was we initially decided on a third. A third gen Eclipse.
V6.
V6 third gen Eclipse manual.
Possibly Spider or convertible.
Yeah.
That would have been sick, except we quickly realized that a lot of you guys who watch our channel are Honda guys through and through, and we were like, well, just because we are open to trying out different JDM cars, that's not necessarily what we should do right now, because making the switch from Honda to Mitsubishi is a very different group of people who enjoy that content. And so we were like, we got some people who have been like watching every video, super faithful the whole way.
I just sneezed. I was trying to take a drink and then
what?
I was trying to take a drink and then I just sneezed, but I had the drink in my mouth, so I had to try to hold it in.
We gotta clip that sound and use it in a video later. That's pretty iconic. I like that for you.
Oh God, I'm so sorry about that.
All right, moving on. So going with a V6 Eclipse is just not really in our cards. Also, finding one that's not a complete piece of junk,
that is difficult.
Pretty difficult for a decent price. And this is a budget channel, and I think it will remain that way for a very long time.
Yeah, for a while.
So, the next car we picked out is, hit him with it, bro.
I could be misremembering.
Okay,
but I believe
a 1998 era Acura
Okay, yes.
Integra.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because our thought process was Acura is the luxury version of Honda. So if we move on from a Honda to an Acura, it wouldn't alienate a big portion of our audience, because that's still within the Honda realm. It's still a fun car that a lot of people like. And because that was our main concern with going to a Mitsubishi, is that we'd be alienating a huge portion of our audience, and basically giving them the fucking finger and being like, hey, we gave you all this shit on Civics and you loved it and you wanted more. Well, fuck you. Now we got a fucking Eclipse.
Right. Yeah. So I think the Integra is a good choice, because I've had two from that model with the little fucking round headlights.
Yeah.
I loved them. They were great cars. They put out a decent amount of horsepower with their like normal engine, not the sporty GS edition or whatever. They're pretty sweet. And they're very common in manuals, which is what we want. And also, it's not impossible to find them unmodified, or at least lightly modified, which is what we want. We want to start on like a base. The Civic was great because I bought it off of a friend, and it wasn't running well. It had plugged EGR stuff, and he had bought a different car, and he was like, I don't really want this, do you? And I was like, well, I guess. Is it a manual? He's like, yeah. And I was like, what? It's a manual? And so we went for that, and it was like completely stock.
No, that was an awesome benefit.
Starting point. Yeah. I got one of these recently, just now, actually. Yeah, I got one of those. Okay, moving on. So we're just, I think the Integra is the way to go. The Integra is going to be pretty sweet. And the coolest thing to me is that most of the Integras are a coupe, right?
Yeah.
A two-door. And that's going to be really sweet simply because it'll be sportier, lighter, most likely. I'm not actually sure of the poundage on that versus the Civic we have now. But they're also just a lot more compact, and so taking corners in them, even stock, is a lot easier and more fun than the Civic we have now. Like, you remember when we got it, blown struts or not, it was really high off the ground.
Yes.
And it was not great for cornering. Integras come a little bit more sporty. That was the intention of Honda at the time, I believe. And so it's like, that's pretty sweet. We're getting a much cooler car to start off with more horsepower off the bat that we have to work with. And so, that's the next car we're kind of looking towards. Not sure when that'll happen. I haven't found one that I'm like, I need that. But
in terms of more like potentially closer to working on the next car, we've worked on it a little bit, but not a whole lot, is my 2002 Toyota Celica.
Yeah. That was my next question, actually, is like, what do you foresee for the future of that car? Because as some of you know, it's got 0 psi of pressure when doing
the third cylinder.
When doing a compression test. It's pretty rough.
Absolutely fucked.
Sounds cool.
It sounds cool, but not for a good reason.
Right.
So I'm looking to get a new engine for it, and when that happens, I have a lot of hopes for it. The wheels on it now that it has, I really like. It's blacked out wheels. I think those are really cool.
They're decent wheels.
We did the headlight replacement. That was really cool. And we did the short ram air intake, but just like we recently did on the Civic, I would like to actually try to find like a cold air intake specifically designed for the Celica.
They make them. You cut a hole in part of the, it's not the body or the frame. It's just some metal that goes down from the frame into the wheel well. You cut a hole in that, and you actually run it fully into the wheel well. It comes out straight from your throttle, goes down into the wheel well, and then down some more.
Yeah,
I've heard wonderful things about those.
I really want to get one of those, because the only two I have seen mainly that people do for Celicas is the short ram that I have, where it's just like a stick out and then there,
right,
or the one that like loops around like an elbow, but then it's literally right next to the radiator fan, and it's like there is nothing cold about that air. And that's why it's called a short ram air intake and not a cold air intake. But the short ram is great, but I want a cold air intake. And then I want to get a body kit on it. I was thinking about doing suspension, but the suspension on that car, the coils and the suspension are in really good condition.
Right.
And they don't...
It's stock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they don't need... The only thing the previous owner did to it, thankfully, was exhaust modifications.
Yeah.
The engine
they were
was
pretty
completely
shoddy
stock
too.
when I yeah, they were. Don't get me wrong, the exhaust modifications were shitty, but the engine was completely stock, fucked, but stock.
Right.
So I want to get a new engine in it. So the suspension and is perfectly fine, thankfully. Yeah. So I'm gonna leave that for now, but I want to get a body kit on it.
Yeah.
I want to get the side skirts and the lip and all that stuff. And then I want to get a cold air intake, and I want to get a, it is skipping my mind right now. I don't know why. I want to get a short shifter, but that's not what I was trying to say. Sway bars. I want to get sway bars.
Yeah, that'll help your stock suspension. Yeah.
Yeah. I although I'm not going to touch the suspension, I do want to get sway bars. And then, like I said, an actual cold air intake and all that stuff. And
I think the first thing is the engine, so that
unequal length headers.
Oh yeah,
that's later on.
If we can find them, I don't know if anybody makes them.
That's like if I can find them, if it's possible, whatever.
We might be able to make some. It's possible.
Maybe. Well, I don't know if I want to get into that territory of car modifications,
right.
But that is just something that I would like to do if possible. But yeah, so there's a lot of things I want to do to it. And it's an amazing car. Eventually down the road, like a long time from now, like it's not going to happen within the next 2 or 3 years type down the road. Yeah. I would like to actually do an engine swap, and get a different engine in there. At the very least, I want to get a GTS engine in there. Yeah. Because my Toyota Celica is a Toyota Celica GT, which is 140 horsepower. Yeah. And the GTS was the faster version at 180. And I want to get that. I would like to do that, or turbo it. Here's the problem with the Celica engines, though. Once you hit like 300 horsepower, because I was reading on some forums, Celica forums. Once you get those engines to like 300 horsepower, the pistons start cracking and breaking.
That's
and the
exciting.
Piston walls.
That's really exciting.
And if you already have 180 horsepower, and then you're getting a turbo to increase that, it also depends on how much you increase it. But I don't know a whole lot about turboing. I need to do turboing. I need to do a lot of research before I get into that. But to my understanding, it is a lot safer to turbo the GT engines because you'll end up being faster than a GTS, but not so much faster that you're going to break the fucking engine.
So the engine is stronger at taking boost in the GTs rather than the GTS, essentially, is what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's true. If you get a really good low mileage engine to replace yours with, just a regular GT, it might be more advantageous instead of swapping it again and getting a new wiring harness and ECU and all that crap.
Yeah.
Just turboing that one. Because I think you could hit the same like 250 horsepower area roughly.
Yeah.
And it would be the fastest, funnest car you own for a long time just off of that, instead of going through the purchase price and also the issues of the GTS.
Because that's also the thing with the GTS. I wouldn't, because with just putting a new GT engine in it, all I have to do is buy the engine. But with the GTS, I have to get the engine, the wiring harness. I have to get a new transmission and a new shifter because the GTS is a 6-speed and mine's a 5.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm thinking I'm just gonna do the GT and then turbo the GT engine. And because when I first got it, I know a lot more about cars now, surprisingly, than when I did just when I bought the Celica. Because when I bought it, my full intention was to just swap it for a GTS. But now that I've learned more, I'm like, maybe that's not the best idea. Which is actually really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just really hyped for the future of it. And I think, like I said, body kit, cold air intake, sway bars, new engine, turbo.
That'll be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
All right. So I think now we move on to the final segment of our podcast, known as the current meme.
Current meme.
This is something fun we're doing. Me and Noah and our group of friends go through a lot of memes, probably on a weekly basis. One of the ones that is very common right now is commonly goes with the video of the bird, the little baby bird.
Oh, the little
in the
baby
nest.
bird that goes, oh, yeah, just, oh, yeah.
That one?
Exactly.
That one's pretty good. I think that's probably one of our current memes. Mm-hmm. What would you say our second current meme is?
Okay, so this one isn't necessarily as more in the group. It's more so just me. Mm-hmm. But I've been getting a huge fucking kick out of the Breaking Bad edits into like Valorant and Minecraft. Where they fucking like green screen Breaking Bad characters into Valorant or Minecraft. And fucking, dude, I don't know why, but those shit. Because I showed you the one where it was like, in the show, he was like, Walter White was like punching some shit.
Yeah.
But they green screened him out and put him against the barrier and like the before the round starts in Valorant.
Right.
And it just had Walter White just punching the shield and it was making the sound effect. Dude, that
so
shit
good.
cracks me the fuck up. I love that.
Those are good memes for sure. In the future, in this podcast, we will be talking about all of our different hobbies, of which there are many. And we'll just be discussing that stuff. And so, yeah, basically, thank you guys for watching.
Can I say something?
Oh, yeah,
I just want to say also, we're very new to this podcast format, so there are definitely going to be some road bumps and just us figuring it out. We greatly appreciate you guys watching us and sticking with us through the road bumps, just like a lot of you did with the actual Grid Engine channel. We greatly appreciate it. We love doing this. It's a lot of fun, and thank you guys for watching and listening.
Right, well, thank you guys, as always, and we will catch you next time.